Me and sharing your views. Meanwhile, tensions are high ahead of a possible direct peace talks between Russia and Ukraine set for Thursday in Istanbul. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he'll only attend if Russian President Vladimir Putin is present. He is refusing to meet with any other Russian official. The talks come amidst growing pressure from the Americans and Europe, who have warned Moscow to agree to a 30-day ceasefire or face tough sanctions. Zelensky is due to meet the Turkish President Erdogan in Ankara, but says he will head to Istanbul immediately if Putin confirms his presence. The US President Donald Trump has backed the talks and says he might fly to Turkey depending on whether Putin participates. The Secretary of State of America, Marco Rubio, and other senior officials will represent the US at the table. The last direct meeting between Putin and Zelensky took place in 2022, shortly after Russia's full-scale invasion. That round of talks, held in Belarus, failed to reach a breakthrough. This Istanbul summit would mark the first face-to-face engagement between the two leaders in over 3 years. Ross Feingold on the telecast with me. Ross, interesting times here. There has been an ultimatum that has been given by Zelensky of Ukraine to have face-to-face talks with Putin. But what are the chances this on-the-table conversation will take place between the Russian president and his Ukrainian counterpart tomorrow?
At the time of this program, we still don't know. Russia and President Putin have simply not indicated whether or not President Putin is going to fly to Istanbul and meet with Zelensky in person. So time is running out. We'll know the answer by within a few hours from now. And in the meantime, the key stakeholders are awaiting that decision from Putin. Those stakeholders, most importantly, being President Zelensky, but also the hosts, the government and president of Turkey, as well as the United States government, including President Trump, who said that he's willing to fly to Istanbul and participate directly in the talks. I think President Trump deserves some credit for willing to put his own political capital on the line by offering to be in the room with the two leaders, the leaders of Ukraine and Russia. But in the meantime, we simply don't know whether or not Putin is going to go.
Okay, but then do you think these demands of having Putin in the discussion table are unwarranted? How does it make a difference whether President Putin or his delegation that is led by the Foreign Minister Lavrov is present to hold talks for a possible 30-day ceasefire?
That's a really interesting question, and there isn't necessarily a right or wrong answer to that question. From one perspective, just based on simple protocol concerns, if the president of Ukraine is going to be in the room, then the president of the other side, in this case Putin, should be in the room. It would be a little odd for the president of Ukraine to meet and negotiate with people below the presidential level who are simply ministers of the Russian government. One would say that's really inappropriate for a president to try and negotiate with people who are below his level on the Russian side. So one could understand Zelensky's concern that he wants to be negotiating with his counterpart and maintain the dignity of the fact that he's president and really should only be interacting with the president of Russia. So I think we should be very sympathetic to Zelensky's concern in that regard. The other perspective on that is to simply say that Zelensky showed up, the other president didn't show up, Putin did not show up, and this makes Zelensky look good, and it makes Russia look like the uncooperative party, and there could be more sanctions. The EU today discussed imposing additional sanctions on Russia's shadow fleet. President Trump has threatened to impose more sanctions on Russia if Putin doesn't show up. So again, another perspective on this it would be to recommend to Zelensky, you got to go, you got to be in the room, and let Putin embarrass himself by not showing up.
All right, and finally, before I let you go, what are but the fresh threats by Europe, whether it is the German Chancellor or the French President, of imposing new sanctions on Russia if a 30-day ceasefire was not achieved?
For Western Europe, what we still see, despite changes in leadership in some of the countries in recent years, we have a relatively new prime minister in the UK, Starmer. We have a new chancellor in Germany, and they still remain united. And they've been united in their support of Ukraine. They've been united in providing weapons and cash to Ukraine. Of course, a lot of that was with the cooperation of the former Biden administration in the U.S., and they're cooperating on sanctions as well. So to its credit, Western Europe remains united, and I think this is it's a substantial tool. Russia will genuinely be concerned about additional sanctions from the Western European countries and possibly from the United States. So it might be effective in the coming hours in getting Putin to show up.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Ross, for giving us your point of view. On that note, I'm out of time. I thank you all for watching us on NewsX World. Stay tuned for more news and updates.